Welcome! Take a seat in Maka's corner and have a listen. Today we're reading Chapter 5 of Murder on Green Hill Island. Let's get started. Gold wasted no time in getting to the crux of the matter, welcoming the audience back a lot swifter than usual, and turned directly back to Sonic. She knew it was unprofessional, but at this point, even the Tenric couldn't escape the captivating nature of Sonic's retelling of events and wanted to hear more. She had theories of her own and wanted to discover if she was indeed correct in her assumptions or not. So, after they found Rouge's body, what happened next? Gold asked, a lot more attentive and enthusiastic than she had been previously. Well, Mina began to lose it at the others as they returned to the campsite to regroup. Sonic began. "What the fuck are you guys doing?" Mina yelled, anger masking the sadness that she felt. It took the mongoose all of her willpower to stop the tears that threatened to escape. "Somebody must have slipped something into our food last night," Blaze replied, still holding her stomach. The gurgling sounds were growing steadily louder, and every now and then, the cat had to excuse herself to rush out of sight to vomit in the bushes. Each time, Tails offered to help her, even carry her if need be, but Blaze denied him each time, thanking him for his kindness. "Oh, that's bullshit and you know it," Mina cast an accusing finger at the cat, narrowing her eyes in anger. "You had one job, to protect Rouge." "Mina, calm down, Tails began, but was interrupted by the mongoose. "You had one job," she repeated, "and you failed. You were the reason she's dead. So why do you even care, since you two were such close friends?" Amy spat, getting fueled up by all the flame that was getting thrown around Blaze and her way. She was my best friend," Mina sighed, letting a stray tear escape her eye. Mina sat outside the studio, lost in a sea of tall, skinny, blonde-haired girls who were all reciting passages from the white scripts that they were all handed. Mina's palms began to sweat as her eyes darted around the room, watching the much more experienced actresses get called. Eventually, Mina's name was called up, and she entered the auditioning room and recited her part. The director thanked her and, without saying anything or expressing any emotion, asked her to leave. Mina rushed outside, straight to a bench where she buried her head in her hands and began to cry her heart out, knowing that she would never be able to make it in the world of acting. It was there that the Bat, who Mina recognized as one of the other auditioners that was previously in the room, sat down next to her. "Hey, don't cry. This is my 7th audition in a row where I didn't get anything. You'll make it," Rouge cooed, taking pity on the little mongoose. Rouge remembered back when she was trying to get into acting after their final battle with Eggman and how it destroyed her self-esteem, which she worked hard to acquire. "But all I've ever wanted was to be an actress, and I sucked in there," Mina wailed. "Hey, Mina, wasn't it? Look at me. Acting is hard, but don't give up. I'll tell you what, next part, we can practice together, deal?" The Bat smiled at her. Mina nodded, laughing a bit at the niceness of a complete stranger as she wiped away a tear from her eye. After that fateful day, the two began hanging out quite a bit. They practiced for roles together, helping each other improve their acting skills, sharing beauty tips and makeup, and divulging deep boy troubles and secrets together. The more they hung out, the more their friendship blossomed. "Mina," Tails breathed. "I'm sorry, I can't imagine what would happen if I lost my best friend. If Sonic was murdered, He trailed off. "I know it's sad, but we can't go blaming others," Amy added in. Mina turned to her, getting right up in the pink hedgehog's face. "And you!" she bellowed. "What even happened to you? Did you see who the killer was or not? You got stabbed and then what? You ran away, leaving Rouge to die on her own?" Amy stammered, but Mina was not letting up. "And then, you clumsy idiot, you tripped and you hit your head. You say you can't remember anything after when you and Tails were trying to fix the power?" At this point, Mina was seething with anger, unable to control herself any longer. "Mina, that's enough!" Tails yelled, surprising all 3 of the girls. Tails finally took a stand, standing between Mina and the 2 others in a protective stance. We can grieve later, but this is not the time or place for this. The killer's still out there, and turning on each other's not the answer. Mina, Blaze turned to the mongoose. I'm so sorry about Rouge, and you have every right to be mad at me and hate me forever, but can we do it after we get off this island? Blaze pleaded. Whatever. Mina snorted as she pushed past the others and stormed off to camp. The wind swept his face, stinging his eyes as Sonic ran faster and faster at speeds he doesn't normally achieve. He expertly dodged between trees and branches whilst continuing his blazing speed. His thoughts were running wild. Images of Sally flashed through his mind, the attractive squirrel reading a book, sitting by the fire, her posing on the cruise ship in her bikini, giving Sonic the thumbs up symbol. His thoughts went further back, all culminating on the one occasion when all of his wildest fantasies came true. Silver! Sonic called angrily, rushing through his clouded fantasy, the fog clearing from his mind as he backtracked to when he passed the body of the hedgehog. Sonic sprinted up to him, lying down in the middle of a small opening in the canopy. The rays of the setting sun shone down from the sky, causing a warm glow to radiate around the hedgehog. Sonic narrowed his eyes, the flame of anger, regret, and disgust emanating in his pupils. He jumped on Silver, piercing his nails into the hedgehog's shoulders as he got a grip on him. When Silver made no movement at all, Sonic yelled angrily at him. "Get up, murderer!" He cursed, but still, the white hedgehog did nothing. He raised an eyebrow, curious, as he turned Silver over, still kneeling on top of the body. When Sonic saw what had happened to Silver, he gasped. The normally white neck of Silver was swollen, blue and purple, prominently covering the area. His small windpipe collapsed in on itself. His eyes were slightly bulged out of his head as the killer clearly tried to pop them right out of his skull. Sonic, still positioned on top of Silver, brought his shoulders up so that Silver was in an almost sitting position and violently shook the body. "Silver! Wake up, you piece of shit! You can't be dead! You were the killer! You had to be!" He let a tear fly out of his eye, knowing that he couldn't serve any justice for Sally's death yet. The asphyxiated hedgehog's neck fell sideways when Sonic let go of his shoulders, and a limp body crashed back down to the earth. "I knew it!" A voice called from behind a tree. Sonic swiveled his head to meet the accusing gaze of Scourge the hedgehog. "You were the killer." Sonic shook his head vigorously, realizing how this must have looked to Scourge after stumbling upon the body. I didn't do this, I swear," Sonic yelled, standing up from the body. As he began to prove his innocence to Scourge, he heard another voice from behind him. You killed Cream!" Shadow bellowed. Sonic turned, meeting the furious glare of the ebony hedgehog. "Shads, come on, it's not like this. I didn't do this." However, as he was focused on Shadow, Scourge rushed up to him and punched him in the back of the head. The world began to spin for a few short moments before Sonic crashed down to the earth. The last thing he saw was the two hedgehogs walking up to stand over his body, before everything went black. "What are you doing? Throwing this jerk out where he deserves to be? Let him out! He killed Cream!" Sonic began to get groggy as he heard select voices pierce through the blackness, guiding him back to the realm of consciousness. He felt like he was flying through the air, soaring above the clouds in the vast blackness of space. No worries, no cares, until he lost his rhythm and crashed down to earth, smashing into the rocky cliffs below him. Sonic jumped with a start, rubbing his head as he felt his body smash into the back of a wooden structure. He looked around, noticing that all 7 pairs of eyes were strained on him. What happened?" Sonic asked, rubbing his eyes as his senses began to return to him, and he was able to take in his surroundings properly. "You killed Cream and all of the others," Shadow hissed at him through hastily constructed wooden bars. Sonic's eyes widened as he walked forward, wrapping his fingers around the bars as he looked at the others. "Guys, you have to believe me, I didn't do this," he pleaded, searching through the faces of his friends, stopping on the saddened eyes of Tails. "Buddy, come on, you know me." I don't know, Sonic. They said they saw you strangle Silver," Tails muttered, looking down at his shoes. "Blaze?" he questioned, turning towards the cat who refused to meet his eye contact. Silver might have gotten a bit jealous, but he was still my best friend. And you killed him! Go to hell, Blaze spat, turning to sit down alone at a log. Tails, Sonic breathed, staring him directly in the eyes. I didn't kill anybody. Tails looked into the emerald pools in Sonic's eyes, searching for any indication that he was lying. He found none. I believe you, Tails whispered. I'll get you out of there, I promise. After saying that, Tails padded over and placed a consoling arm around the violet cat, who finally let her pent-up sadness due to Silver spill out. She cried into Tails' shoulder as he cooed soft niceties to try and cheer her up. Sonic turned his attention back to the others, knowing that he didn't have that same connection with the others that he did with Tails, and tried to use logic to convince them of his innocence. Guys, seriously, how could I have killed Rouge if I was apparently off killing Silver at the same time? He posed the question to the remaining 5 who were still standing around the cage. It's a small island, Mina piped up, and you're super fast. You could have easily sprinted in, tried to kill Amy, dispatched Rouge, and ran back to get Silver before he could escape. Are you kidding me? If I was that ruthless, I would have killed you all by now without waiting all this time, Sonic defended. That sounds like a threat, Shadow eyed the Sapphire Hedgehog. And I doubt you would, since you're no match for Shadow, Fiona, or myself, Scourge challenged. But, guys, Amy suddenly spoke up, I do remember something about the killer. This sudden information turned most heads, everybody looking at her. Her sudden confession even gained the attention of Tails, who was still sitting over with Blaze. I remember seeing something red in the night before being attacked. Sonic's blue, not red, she remarked. Fiona piped up, scratching her chin. Possibly like the red on that gigantic logo plastered all over your shirt. Fiona pointed an accusing finger at Sonic and the red wording of his favorite brand name written across his chest. That proves it. It was dark and the lights were off, but she definitely saw you in the mansion, Mina yelled. The group nodded, all collectively agreeing with them as Sonic started to feel more and more desperate. He had been trying to keep his grief buried down within him, trying not to let it warp his mind and decisions while he was still trying to protect the rest of his friends from the killer, but he was left with no choice. He allowed his feelings for Sally to surface again. I was in love with Sally, he said, a tear falling from his eye. You were? Shadow mouthed, suddenly feeling a tinge of sympathy for the hedgehog, knowing the pain of suddenly losing a loved one. You what? Amy screamed at the top of her lungs. Her eyes grew big and her mouth fell agape, almost hitting the floor with surprise. But, she stammered but couldn't finish the sentence. Sorry, Ames, but I love Sally, he admitted. Sorry, Sonic, but I don't believe you, Mina said. Neither do I, Fiona scoffed. You showed no grief after her death. I was devastated, but I tried to keep a level head despite a slight misstep when I attacked Shadow. It's the shame with Shadow, Blaze, and Mina. We get mad, but we can't give in to our grief right now. We can't let it affect our rational thinking, or the killer will use our weakness to our advantage and finish us all off. Well, it's a good thing the killer is finally behind bars then, huh? Mina stated. Scourge nodded his head. Shadow looked at the hedgehog, seemingly studying his face. Whether he believed Sonic's confession or not, he didn't show any emotion. Shadow simply kept his mouth shut, not wanting to cause any more fighting between the ground, and went to sit up on a stump alone. Guys, seriously? He asked, his heart falling into the pit of his stomach like a brick as, one by one, they all turned from his cage and walked over to the campfire pit and took a seat. Ames? He asked, noticing that she still stayed at his cage. How could you? She sniffed, finally turning to go sit with all of the others on the other side of the field. Guys! Sonic screamed at the top of his lungs, trying to gather their attention, but to no avail. Sonic let out a frustrated sigh, punching the wooden cage that was surprisingly sturdy, and collapsing in a defeated heap on the floor as the sun finally fell below the horizon, marking the end of a horrid day. So, they just left you in there in the makeshift cage all night? Gold asked, completely engrossed in his tale. Well, they were all so hurt, confused, and stupid, Sonic sighed. So did anything else interesting happen that night? Gold asked, quickly allowing herself a sneaky glance at her wristwatch to make sure that it was not yet time for another commercial. Well, you could say that, Sonic continued his recounts. The fire crackled loudly, small spurts of golden embers flying out of the central flame and dancing on the frosty night winds. The fire, expertly created, burned brightly, creating shadows with its red and orange flames. Mina, Tails, Blaze, Amy, Scourge, Fiona, and Shadow all sat around the fire, scooping out cans of baked beans that Shadow had brought back with him in a bag that he took from the mansion. The group wolfed them down, mostly ignoring the rumblings of Sonic's stomach from the cage he was detained in at the other end of the small field, alone. Tails sighed, picking up one of the remaining cans and standing up. He began to walk away when he felt something grab his arm. He looked down to see Blaze holding his arm, a stern look on her face. Blaze? Tails questioned, returning an inquisitive look at her direction. Don't give him any. She spoke plainly. We can't just let him starve, Tails responded. He killed Silver and countless others. He can go hungry, she replied coldly, a lot harsher than the fox had known Blaze to be. Even murderers deserve to eat, Tails concluded, shaking his arm free of her grasp and marching over towards the cage. Tails accidentally tripped on a small stick that was stuck out of the ground, stumbling a little and fumbling the can. The group around the fire chuckled quietly, causing a slight blush of embarrassment to form on his face. However, Tails was not deterred and continued up to Sonic, handing him the can. Thanks, buddy, Sonic replied, eagerly wolfing down the contents of the can, not even caring that it was just beans. I'll figure a way to get you out of here, Tails whispered. I know you will, Tails. By the way, I can hear everything you guys say from over here. They know, they just don't care. Sonic frowned before Tails offered him an empathetic smile. See you in the morning. Tails said his goodbyes, before waddling back over to the group and taking a seat by the warm, toasty fire. So, Mina sung out, finally finishing the thing that she was working on. She picked up a small little blackboard from behind her and placed it on her lap. In her hand, she held a small little piece of white chalk. Where'd you get that? Shadow asked, although he didn't actually care. A girl comes prepared for anything, Mina giggled before addressing the chalkboard again. She had drawn crude doodles of all 13 people that had been with them on the island standing in different parts of the board. This is everybody who was on the island, she began in a didactic tone, and these are the people who've already been struck down by Sonic, she added, drawing a big X through Cream, Knuckles, Sally, Rouge, and Silver. Now, as long as we stick together in a group and not wander off on our own, no more X's will have to be drawn, she concluded. This is stupid, Fiona mouthed to Scourge. However, Mina noticed her sly remark and asked what was so important that she had to whisper it to Scourge. I was just saying that this is stupid, Fiona stated loudly. We already caught Sonic, so none of us can be killed. Why do we care? Let's find a boat and let's get the hell off this damned island. It's not like we can do anything until morning anyways. Besides, finding a boat might not be easy, seeming as we are kinda trapped here, Mina countered. Whatever, I don't want to stand here with you losers. Come on, Scourge, let's go, Fiona commanded, gripping his wrist with her hands and urging him to follow. Fiona, no. What, you want to hang out with these losers? She questioned. Look, Fee, I guess I should come clean. To all of you. He gestured to the rest of the group. All eyes were focused on him, curious about what he had to come clean about. Even Sonic, who strained his ears to hear the conversation clearly, was hoping for a confession that would get him out of this freezing cage. I didn't exactly come here to rob Cream, he said, eliciting some gasps from the group. What? Why did you bring me to this island then? Fiona threw her hands. up, not liking being lied to by her boyfriend of 2 years? Well, the truth is... Scourge stalled, pondering how exactly to say this to everybody. Out with it, Fiona yelled. Fine, Scourge replied angrily. The main reason I came here was because I wanted an excuse to hang out with all of you. The plan was for you guys to see the real me, and maybe you would let me be part of the Freedom Fighters and we could fight together and I'd be invited to your parties and stuff, and yeah. He quickly blurted out as lightning fast as he possibly could. Everyone just stared at him, a blank look on all of their faces. You don't have to be dicks about it, whatever, it was stupid, forget about it. He crossed his arms, shielding himself from the ridicule. Why didn't you just say so? Amy asked. We would have given you a shot, Blaze added. No, you wouldn't have. You would have just thought it was a trick and kicked my ass again. They didn't reply, admitting that it was kind of exactly how they would all react. Are you kidding me? Fiona said, baffled and annoyed. She let go of his arm and stepped back to the other side of the fire. Above everything that was running through the fox's head, betrayed was one of the many words whizzing around in her brain that she could grasp. Fee, come on. Just shut up. Let's go to sleep, she said, lying down and turning over so her back faced the rest of the group. Yeah, it's been a long day and some shut-eye could help all of our moods, Amy agreed. The group said their goodnights to each other before dozing off, leaving only Scourge and Shadow awake. Hey Scourge, you still awake? Shadow whispered after trying without success to fall asleep. Yeah, what's up? He asked. Welcome to the team. Shadow smiled. Thanks. They'll warm up to you eventually. I hope so, Scourge thought, yawning. It took them a long time, to finally accept me after the incident with the space colony arc, he admitted. Even now, I still don't feel like a permanent part of the team. You saw how suspicious Sonic and Amy got when Cream died. They all just called me the outcast. Well, look, Shadow, I'm not one for mushy stuff, but you seem like a cool guy. If you ever need somebody, I got your back. Scourge smirked, locking eyes with the ebony hedgehog. Same with you, Scourge. Shadow nodded. Without another word, both closed their eyes and drifted off to sleep, happy in their knowledge of their newfound friendship. Fiona slowly opened an eyelid, scanning the area around her. When she couldn't see any movement or hear any talking, she chanced to glance around. She lifted her head and checked on all the others. The fire had all but gone out at this point, leaving only a few burning embers surrounded by charcoal and the hot coals of the previous fire. She noticed that everyone, including Sonic in his cage, was dead asleep. Quietly standing up, being careful to make no sounds, she began to tiptoe away from the campsite. She had almost made it to past without waking anybody up, where she would be home free, when she heard something that made both her blood boil and heart sink. Anybody but him, she thought, sighing. Fiona, what are you doing? A voice called out. Shh, Fiona hissed, turning around to see the fox boy Tails sit up. He was rubbing some sleep out of his eyes, but was staring right at her. She rolled her eyes, knowing there was no way out of this. She lifted up a hand and beckoned him over to where she was with a finger, figuring that it would be easier to talk far away so nobody else would wake up. Tails shot up and sprinted over to the fox, skidding to a halt in front of her, letting little bits of shredded grass fly from his sneakers. What are you doing? He asked. What does it look like? Scourge might have gone soft, but I sure haven't, she scoffed, staring daggers at the sleeping body of the green hedgehog. So that's it? After everything that happened, you're just leaving? Tails asked, hurt flooding his voice. Fiona didn't know why, but she actually felt something in her stomach. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. Guilt. Look, She began trying to explain herself when something snapped in her. She knew how this was going to end, and she was having none of it. She steeled herself mentally and pushed the horrible feelings of care and guilt deep back down inside of her. I don't care about any of you. I'm going to do what I came here for. I'm going to get into that mansion, make my way into Cream's room, and rob that damn dead rabbit blind, she stated plainly and ferociously. So what? What was that happened between us today? Just nothing? Tails yelled quietly back at her, tears brimming in his eyes. What do you mean? Nothing happened between us. I just felt sorry for you is all. You and I both know that's not true. Why do you build these walls around you, Fiona? Why do you push away everyone that cares about you? You care about me? Fiona asked, surprise emanating from her voice. Tails simply nodded, taking her hands in his and staring at her. She stared back at him, allowing that warm feeling that the little fox gave her to begin to well inside of her again. She took a deep breath and shook her head, forcing the feelings further down inside of her, like she always had to do throughout her childhood. Fiona had been through the ringer. She had loved and been hurt too many times. She knew that you couldn't rely on anybody else besides yourself no matter what. The streets may not have been kind to small children, but they taught Fiona how to survive and how to be tough. So, who cares? You're just a little pipsqueak. She shoved him off, causing him to stumble backwards a couple of feet and collapse on his back. Fiona, please, don't do this again. I know you. This isn't you, Tails begged, trying his hardest to reach into her to find that heart that he knew she had. You don't know me. You'll never know me. Nobody knows me. She looked down at her shoes, anguish flooded in her voice. Then let me know you. Let me help you, Tails stated, holding out his hand towards her. She glanced between Tails' hand and the trail that led off to the mansion. The gears in her head began to spin, but the true decision was being made between her heart and the walls that she created to shield her from any more pain. After what seemed like minutes, she finally made her choice. You can't trust anybody but yourself, she said plainly, refusing to look Tails in her eyes. She turned and strutted off down the gravelly path, never once looking back. Fiona! Tails called out hopelessly. She could hear the hurt and sadness in his voice, but she refused to let him get the better of her. Nobody would ever get the better of her again. Fine, he yelled out. Just go. See if I care. He let his voice drop to a defeated whisper. I'm gonna have to cut you off right there. Gold jumped in before Sonic could describe the events that happened in that part. But we were just getting to the good part, he urged. That might be, but we need to take another break. We're only now just halfway through the show. You still have plenty of time to finish your story. She smiled at Sonic. But don't you want to hear what happened during the night? He persisted, sick of taking all of these incessant breaks for commercial. I do, but do our audience? She turned to look at the camera, using Sonic's words as a segue to run the commercials. If they do, then make sure you stick around after a couple words from our sponsors. Alright, that is it for Murder on Green Hill Island Chapter 5. Thanks for stopping by and listening. Just as a recap, out of everyone who's dead, we have Cream, Knuckles, Sally, Rouge, and Silver. We'll see you guys next time for Chapter 5. Again, repeating this, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I guess I have to say that. Thanks, bye-bye.